Hi there, Rafael Gonzalez here from Caddy and Gonzalez. As always, hope this finds you well. Well, it finally happened. Yep, CMS has finally produced final rules regarding mandatory insurer reporting civil monetary penalties. If all of you have been paying attention, and I know a lot of you have over the years, this is something that I have been writing about, speaking about since 2007 when the statute was amended. Certainly, lots of things have happened since then. In 2013, the SMART Act provided us guidance with regard to these rules. In 2020, CMS finally published a set of proposed rules. And although we thought we were going to get these final rules earlier this year, they were, in essence, put out for another year. But CMS finally did, and the White House finally performed its final review. And so here they are, finalized for us. I will share with you that there are 5 major components to these final rules that provide leadership and guidance with regard to $1,000 per day per file civil monetary penalties. Important for all of you to understand is these rules were in fact published in the Federal Register October 11th, 2023. That's important because these rules do not become effective until 60 days thereafter. So December 11th of 2023 is the effective date for these rules. They will not become applicable for a year from the date that they were published in the Federal Register. So we're talking about now October 11th of 2024 is when these rules will become applicable to all of your cases. And as you'll hear me talk about here throughout this presentation, there is a 1 year from that date from which parties must report the either ongoing responsibility for medical or the TPOC, the settlement, judgment, or award, if we're talking about non-group health plans. So it isn't as if these rules are going to immediately produce civil monetary penalties. There will be a time period within which CMS has allowed all responsible reporting entities to get their house in order to make sure that they're able to comply with the mandates as the amendments to the civil monetary penalties now comply. I want to share with you what I think are the 5 major points under these rules that I'm hoping all of you will get to understand and will certainly review for yourself, if you will. First is that this final rule eliminates all penalties except untimely reporting. If you've heard me talk about these rules as they had been proposed, we know that CMS had announced potential civil monetary penalties when there were, for example, problems in registering or providing incorrect data to CMS, or if there were inconsistencies between the data provided in mandatory insurer reporting and the collection of conditional payments. All of those proposed rules are gone. The only ones that CMS has kept and are part of this final rule are civil monetary penalties for untimely reporting data to CMS. That timeliness is measured from or comparing the date that the record is submitted versus when it should have been submitted or reported. In other words, right, if you report a settlement 2 years after that settlement, right, the law now gives you a year from the date of that settlement to report it timely and correctly. If you took another year to report that settlement, then it is a year, 365 days of violation under this particular new Code of Federal Regulations. So that is the essence of all civil monetary penalties from now on. It is the timeliness of the reporting, not necessarily the accuracy of the reporting, but the timeliness of the reporting is going to be key and center here. Point number 2, and this is a brand new way of doing this, is instead of looking at every single one of the cases that you may have reported throughout that quarter or throughout the year, CMS is going to audit your cases, and they will look at 1,000 of your cases. They're going to divide that 1,000 by 4 quarters per year, so they're going to take a look at 250 cases of your reported cases on a quarterly basis, and they will then determine what you've done with each of those, whether they were timely reported to CMS. In order to project that out and provide an opportunity for responsible reporting entities to do the right thing correctly, at the time correct, right? They have essentially created a tier penalty system. So if you report during a calendar period more than a year late, but more than a year late, but less than 2 years, the penalty there is $250 per day. If you report 2 years, but less than 3, so more than 2 years late, but less than 3 years late, it'll be $500 per day. If you report more than 3 years late, it'll be $1,000 per day, right? We know that under the group health plan, it is, right, all of it, $1,000 per day from the very beginning. But it is for non-group health plans that they have created this tier penalty system, depending on the length of time that the RRE has been late reporting the data over to CMS. The $365,000, which is $1,000 per day, is still the cap on an annual basis for civil monetary penalties. So they've reminded of that, all of us of that again. Point number 3 under these new rules is there is now an informal dispute process. There is now a formal notice, right, that will be able to dispute, including a right to a hearing before an administrative law judge. So those entities that disagree with CMS's imposition of a civil monetary penalty will receive, right, an informal notice. Just like today, we receive an informal notice regarding, let's say, conditional payments, where parties are provided 30 days within which to dispute. The same process will exist with regard to civil monetary penalties. There will be correspondence in which the parties will have a 30-day period within which to provide a response to CMS, provide mitigating circumstances to CMS, and then CMS will get to decide whether they explain sufficiently and therefore excuse that provision of a penalty, or whether it doesn't and they move forward. If they do move forward in levying the amount of the penalty, then there is a right to an administrative hearing before an administrative law judge. You must ask it within a certain period of time. I think it's a 60-day period of time. And if at the end of that administrative law judge hearing you still disagree with the decision, there is the Department of Appeal Board's formalized appeal process. And that would be the last administrative appeal process. Of course, after that, it would be U.S. District Court. So there is now both an informal and a formal appeals process should the parties disagree with any civil monetary penalty that CMS wants to impose. Point number 4 is there is now a 5-year statute of limitations on CMS to go after and collect these civil monetary penalties. A lot of you have known over time, since you've been with us for a long period of time and you've seen the history and the evolution of the statute, that there is a 3-year period statute of limitations with regard to recoupment of conditional payments on the federal government. Here, based on 28 U.S.C. 2464, with regard to civil monetary penalties, it is a different statute that CMS is using. It is a 5-year statute of limitations from the date of the occurrence. So we've got to make sure that we understand that this is a different statute of limitations that we have been used to speaking about with regard to conditional payments, a 5-year statute of limitations. The last point that I want to make is there's now what I think let's call safe harbor, right? We have all had cases in which the claimant or claimant counsel does not provide the RRE with the sufficient information to be able to report these cases. Here, from here on out, if you can document that, and I think the proposed rule spoke about it very clearly. You either will call, you will email, you will correspond with, so there will be multiple attempts that are required of the RRE to prove that you have sought that information, that no response has been received, or the response was, I am not going to provide you with that information. That information should be kept based on these new rules for a 5-year period to be able to prove the good faith effort in trying to comply with these mandates. A lot to talk about for the next few months, a lot to learn from these new rules. There are a lot of nuggets within the commentary of the rule as to the number of entities affected and the number of dollars that we could be looking at. So for the next few months, we will probably continue to have these conversations together and learn more about what effects all of these changes will have on our industry. But for now, as always, my very best. Thanks so much.